Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's that time of day. Once again, happy to be live streaming to you on another beautiful Monday afternoon. Hopefully, it is beautiful where you are. Actually, it's a little cloudy here, a little rainy here in the good old ATL, but nonetheless, I know that many of you are probably at this point suffering from a little cabin fever, just like tired of the news. I know I am. And if you're affected directly by the coronavirus, my sincerest wishes for good health and fast recovery for anyone that is affected. But with that said, we're going to divert our attention away from that today. We're going to take a look at something that's been around literally since the beginning, and it is called the pen tool. I was just thinking about topics today, and I asked a friend of mine, God, it's like I feel like I've already streamed everything I think I can stream about. What should I stream about? And he was like, stream about the pen tool. I'm like, really, the pen tool, like the pen tool that people hate, the one that's been around for years? Yes, the pen tool, because there are still so many people that don't know how to take advantage of it, don't know why they should take advantage of it, don't know if they should take advantage of it, and even some of us that use it also have just an issue with just learning how it works. And someone says there's an echo. Are you guys hearing an echo? Shouldn't hear an echo. Let me turn off one thing here that might help with that echo. All right, let's see if that helps. If you're hearing an echo, just let me know. I don't know what else I can do about it, but other than turning off this one monitoring thing. But anyway, with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to show you just kind of a quick, like literally nuts and bolts of how the pen tool works. And then we'll dive into when and how you would use it, like in a program like Photoshop or even Illustrator. So let's go ahead and dive in on the computer here. I've got Illustrator open. We're going to start in Illustrator. And the reason we're going to start in Illustrator is because literally this is where the pen tool was born. It was Illustrator around 1986. I know I started with Illustrator 88, so literally that long ago, that's how long the pen tool has been around. Then over the years, Photoshop got it. InDesign even got it. So like other programs have the pen tool, but the pen tool originated here in Illustrator. And it was for people that wanted to draw or trace things. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in and show you how to begin. So let's go ahead and create a new document. I'm just going to make an empty letter size wide document there, nice and easy. And then we'll zoom in a little bit just to fill up the page or fill up the screen. And we're just going to go ahead and jump over to the pen tool itself. Now the pen tool is the pen tool is one tool, but it's a series of tools that work together. So I'm going to hold it down. I'm just going to go ahead. This is one of the cool things about Illustrator is you can tear off groups of tools. So I'm going to tear off this group, and this is the primary group of pen tools that's literally been around since day one. So you have the pen, you have the add anchor point, you have the delete anchor point, I was going to say subtract, delete anchor point, and you have the anchor point tool. And it used to be called the convert anchor point tool, I believe. But anyway, those are the four tools that have literally been around since the beginning of time. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and say, what do we do? So first thing people might think with a tool like this is you start dragging it, and then you get this, and it's like, whoa, what's that? What do I do with that? And then you let go, and oh no, I'm stuck. Oh God, what am I? So you end up with this kind of like this weird, let's just get rid of that. And then you stop using the pen tool because you don't use it like you would think. You don't use it like any other tool. Any other tool, you pick it up, you start drawing with it. You would pick it up and you would start painting with it. But the pen tool is the only one that just doesn't work with clicking it and starting to drag it around. You can drag it around, but you have to know why you would be doing that. So let's say for the sake of example, I'm not an artist, never claimed to be. But let's say I was going to attempt to draw one of those newfangled Cybertrucks, one of those new cars. So I might start with the left side. I just draw from left to right. That's just the way I do it. But I would click, and that's going to put down a point. Now, when I move away from that point, in the previous versions of Illustrator back in the day, you would move away and just see white space. Now when you move away, you get a preview of what that path is going to look like. So that's a huge improvement for beginners to just know, okay, if I want to draw a straight line, this is the angle of the line that I'm going to get. So that's an Illustrator specific thing, by the way. The pen tools and the other applications don't do that yet. So that's an enhancement that came along way, way, way further along in Illustrator's history, like in the last 5 years or a couple of years, that came along. All right, so now I'm going to click again. And okay, that will give me that point. And it's just like I can now go anywhere else I want to go with it. So I'm going to go over here, actually, and because it kind of angles up and then down a little bit. So I'm going to go all the way over here and angle down. And then maybe I'm going to go out here to the front of the car and click again. And then I want to come down here and the front of the car is kind of curved. Well, if I wanted to put a curve right now, we've already seen that click, click, click gives me straight lines. Then how do I get a curve anywhere that I want to start one? Well, you get a curve by, like what we did first time, holding and dragging. When you hold and drag wherever you want it to be, that will give you that curve based on whatever angle you drag it in. So you drag in the direction that you want the curve to be. You drag as far as you want the curve to extend, like in other words, how steep you want that curve to be. So again, if I don't click, like for example, if I don't drag, if I were to pull the handles all the way in, you would see it's going to give me more of a straight line. But as I pull the handles out, I'm still holding down the mouse the entire time, it's going to give me that curve that I'm asking for. And if I pull too far, I'm going to get that kind of a curve. If I don't pull that far, then I'm going to get less of a curve. So click, 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 straight lines, click, drag, curve point. So now when I let go, and by the way, the one thing I want to teach beginners is that it will not be perfect the first time. So in other words, don't worry about, the angle's not quite right. I don't know where I'm going to go next. It's going to throw it off. You'll get a chance to fix it. So this is just getting the basic shape down, and then you can tweak the heck out of it. If you added the wrong point in the wrong spot, you can. You change it. If the handle should have been higher up, like I wanted that roof line to be higher up, I can move it later. So don't get so wrapped up in, oh no, I messed up. The point isn't exactly the one I wanted, where I wanted it, and how I wanted it to be, because you'll always be able to go and change it. That's the whole point about working with vectors. All right, so when I let go, that gives me that curve. And again, I'm getting the rest of the curve to continue on. Now, as we know, if I click, I'm going to get a corner point. If I click and drag, I'm going to get a curve point. So it's me determining what I want at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and just come down a little further. And I apologize, Tesla, your Cybertruck is really screwed up here. That's okay. I'm just giving people a tutorial on basic shapes. All right, so let's go ahead and click again. And now if I come over, I'm back to drawing straight lines. Now let's say I want to continue, and again, I should have made it lower down. I'm not worried about it. I'll fix that later. Let's say that I want to now make a wheel well. So in other words, where the tires are going to go. So I would click, because they wouldn't start at the very beginning. And now I'm going to go up to where the wheel well would come in, let's say at that angle. But if obviously they're not a triangle, it would be a curve. So to get that curve, we already know what to do. Drag, but drag in the direction that I want to keep going in. So I drag to the left because that's the direction I'm going in. And again, you can tweak, you'll be able to turn these later. If you don't get it just right, don't worry about it just yet. You'll be able to get it the way you want when you finish the shape. All right, so now I'm going to let go and again come down. And it's just giving me that perfect curve because I pulled the handles out far enough to give me that curve that I wanted. And now I can continue down. I'm even getting smart guys that we didn't have back in the day letting me know, okay, if you click here, the points are going to be lined up. So I'm getting everything I need to draw the shapes a lot easier than it would have been, especially back when this tool first came out. And by the way, you had no previews, no smart guides back then. You were literally using the force to create your shapes because you had to envision, if I click here, this is what I'm going to get, and then you would learn to do it. Okay, So then I click again and I keep coming out, and I would maybe go down this far and say, okay, that's where the next wheel well is going to start, maybe a little further. Again, if I mess it up, I can always start over, not start over, but tweak it. Click here. And again, I'm going to go up, and I don't know if I'm going to get a smart guide here, but that's okay. I can use a regular guide to align them later. And I know I want a curve here, so don't click, drag. So, and by the way, I'm going to make a mistake on purpose, which means it's not a mistake, right? It's intentional. I'm going to make an intentional error. Let's say I don't curve it. Let's say I don't click and drag. We know right now, we can even see the preview. It's going to be a straight line, because what I want to show you later is how you would fix that if you did mess up and put the wrong thing there. So I'm going to click, oh no, we got these new triangle tires that don't roll very well. This is not what we want. So I'm going to click again, and I've messed up now. That should have been a curve point. Too late. I've clicked it. I moved on. We can fix that in a minute. So let's say we want to stop here, and we'll put the back of the truck maybe starting there. And then, of course, we always, and I'll zoom in so you can see it, we usually want to finish it off where we started. So as soon as I hover over that starting point, I get you've closed it, you're ready to close it. If you click now, you will close that point. And now your pen tools, it's unlinked from that path. You can now draw a new path. You could draw your wheels, whatever you want to do. But at this point, you have now finished your crazy shape. And my crazy shape in this case needs a lot of work. Okay, so now that I've gotten the basic shapes done, it's now time. So Aaron's asking, what's the pink line? The pink line is a smart guide that appears when 2 points are lining up. So it says, okay, these 2 points are lined up, pink line, you can click now to let go because now they're perfectly aligned. Those are very helpful. All right, so now let's say that I screwed this up. And by the way, they aren't just always level. They could be at any angle, and they're usually horizontal or vertical, but they could be at any angle. Smart guides are awesome. But let's say now, oh God, I'm looking at this is horrible. Like I just messed this up all along the way. No problem, because every one of those points and paths can be adjusted and moved. So for example, if I want to just make the whole thing higher, taller, well, I would start with the point that I first put down. But I don't move it with the pen tool. Like the pen tool is there for creating and deleting and adjusting points. So if I click on that point right now, you see the tool is going to give me a minus. It's saying, oh, you want to delete that point? I'll delete it for you. That's not what we want. We don't want to delete or add new points at this juncture. We want to adjust the ones that are already here. So we don't use the pen tool. We use all the rest of the tools or the direct selection tool. So you have a selection tool, that's the one you use most of the time, but now we learn why we have a direct selection tool. The direct selection tool allows me to manipulate individual points without adjusting the whole path. So in other words, I want to move that up. I want to move this one up. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm feeling better about the way this looks, even though we have a ways to go. But I did not like the initial shape. If I want to pull this down a bit, because maybe it's not going to go straight off the edge, I can move that curve point. I can move this corner point, and now I can curve it down a bit. So any point that needs to be adjusted can be adjusted after the fact. And that's the whole reason why I kept telling you, don't worry if you didn't get it right the first time, because you will be able to go back and adjust it. Now, the big mistake, that wheel well that shouldn't be a triangle, should be a curve. Well, do I have to delete that point and redraw it? No, that's what this last tool is for. This last tool, the anchor point tool, which again used to be called the convert anchor point tool, that was a better name because that's exactly what it was for. If I click the convert anchor point and then go to that point that already exists, let me zoom in on it so you can see it. Oops. Scroll over. Go to that point that already exists, and it's as I hover over, it's saying, okay, you got me. Now what? Well, what should I have done the first time? I should have clicked and dragged. So at this point, I can still use this tool to click and drag in the direction I should have gone in the first place. So that lets me convert that point from a corner point into a curve point after the fact, and vice versa. If you said, hey, I don't think the Cybertruck's curved in the front. I think it's like it goes at an angle like a straight down line. Then I can say, okay, no problem. Click, click, there we go. And that converts that into a corner point. So this tool literally lets you convert whatever point it is into the opposite of what it is. So that way we get complete control. You get to decide after the fact, after you've drawn something, how you want it to be. So if I say, no, it should be a curve, but maybe not as curved, then I can draw out the handles just a little bit more. And maybe this one should be curved. I can draw out those handles just a little bit more, and then I can move that point around. Oops, there we go. Move it around with the right tool. There we go. And there are all kinds of, not the path, the actual point. There are all kinds of modifiers too. So for example, instead of having to constantly switch tools, maybe you hold down a modifier to temporarily switch to the direct selection tool. But one of the most important modifiers I want to teach you now is, and this is the one, if you don't learn any other key to hold down, it's your Option or your Alt key when you're dealing with a curve point. Why do I want to hold down the Option or the Alt key? Because if you haven't noticed yet, whenever, and here I'll just do it on this one. Here, whenever you grab the handles, let me zoom in a little bit more. You see that's the point, and there's a right handle and a left handle. Every curve point, by default, is going to have those two handles. If I click on this one, there we are. Those are the two handles for that one. Well, they work like a teeter-totter. They basically, when you turn one, it adjusts the other one. When you turn the other one, it adjusts that. So if you were to tilt this one, it's automatically going to tilt the other side. And if I were to tilt this one, it's automatically going to tilt the other side. And that's fine if that's what you want. But what if I just wanted the bottom to be more curved or less curved? What if I wanted the top to be more curved or less curved? Well, in that case, then I only really would want to move one side of the handle, not both sides. So that's what the modifier key does. If I hold down my Option or Alt key, then I can go in and I can just mess with one side of the handle while I'm holding that key down. So that will help you get the exact shape you're trying to get by not necessarily having to draw 2 points or finagle it, some weird kind of way. Just hold down your Option key, and that kind of breaks the link so that you can move them independent of each other, and that way get exactly what you want. All right, let's zoom out. So you would just keep working on this and do it. Like, for example, you can also, with the direct selection tool, pick up a point, move it around. You get the handles for that point, so that one wasn't quite in the center. You could use your ruler guides. You can pull down a guide if I wanted to line up those points so those wheel wells would be exactly where they lined up with each other. And I can do the same thing. I can measure between these two to make sure they're the exact same. And so it's just really at this point, straight lines, curved lines, and everything in between. Now let's say, well, I've covered 3 of the 5 tools. What are the other 2 then? They're kind of even self-explanatory just by their icons. They let you add another point to an existing path. They let you delete a point from an existing path. That's it. So, noonchucks. That's correct. So, what if I decided that there should be another angle on this shape? So I could click the plus sign one, and I could go anywhere along the path and click, and that gives me that corner point. Or click and drag, and it would give me that curve point. So now I've got another bend point to bend on. So if I click on that one, I can now bend that angle even more to make my weird looking car. All right, and maybe I want to move it up a little. Maybe there's more of a windshield, there's more of a bend there. And maybe this one should be a little higher. So by adding that point, I'm able to make my car even uglier. But you get the idea. You can make these points any way you want. Now, I added a corner point. So if I wanted to add a curve point, same thing. Instead of clicking, you would do the curve points the way you always do curve points. You would click and drag. So that's going to, it should have given me, oh no, maybe not. Maybe that's just going to give me a corner point. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done this. All right, then I can convert it. All right, so yeah, clicking is always going to give you a corner point. Then if you want to make it into a curve point, you would use the same method to convert it. All right, there was a slight error there. Sorry about that. All right, and if I decided, oh, you've gone off the deep end, no one's going to buy this car. It's no longer aerodynamic, it's no longer safe. Then I can grab the one with the minus and say, no, I really shouldn't have added these points. Oops, sorry. I really shouldn't have added that point. There we go. And that point actually should go back to being a corner point. It should be there, but it should be straight up and down. That's it. 5 tools. 4 of which are under the pen tool. So pen tool, add an anchor point, remove an anchor point, convert an anchor point, or the anchor point tool, and then the direct selection to move them around. Just keep practicing those things, and you will be a pen tool master. Now, if you are the kind of person that draws things, by all means, head over to Illustrator or Photoshop for that matter, and start using the pen tool to draw things. If you're not, like me, I'm just not going to draw things. You see how bad I am at it. I'm not going to draw things. So when would I use the pen tool? Well, let's head over to Photoshop. Before we had all the various ways of selecting objects in Photoshop, the pen tool was and still is the most accurate for non-soft edges. In other words, not hair, not fur, not, something that's feathered on the edges, but for sharp edges. Now, I needed an example of something to trace, so I wanted something with some curves and some straight lines in it. So I had my assistant take a picture of my arm just so I could, have something decent to trace. So, I took my shirt off and kidding, not my arm. I don't think I had to tell you that, did I? Anyway, we got this shape and want to cut it out. Now, this is on a white background. You could argue, okay, you could select the white, inverse the selection, you'd have the arm selected and be pretty good. But it's also got white around the edges. So, and it's reflecting white into the subject. And this is why people always say, oh, you're shooting on a white background, you made it easy. No, shooting on a white background actually makes it harder. Shooting on a gray background makes it easier. But any other color will reflect onto your subject. So if we were to zoom in down here, that makes it harder for any kind of automated selection tool to know the difference. And this is what people ask for when they say, hey, how do we select things that are hard to select? Well, if there's no contrast from the subject in the background, it becomes harder. So now that you've seen how the pen tool works, how would I use the pen tool over here in Photoshop? Well, it's got those same 4 tools, pen tool, add anchor point, delink anchor point, and convert point tool. Here it's still called convert, by the way. And you got some new tools. You got a new freeform pen tool, and you got a new curvature pen tool, and the curvature pen tool is awesome, and it's in Illustrator as well. So I'm going to grab the pen tool. Doesn't matter where I start, anywhere along the edge, just know what you're going to make. So in other words, if I click here in the corner, probably going to be a corner point because that's what it's going to need to be. So I click here, that gives me a point to start with. And again, it doesn't matter where I start. Now, and let me zoom in a little bit. As we're starting to work our way around, you're not going to get that preview inside of Photoshop. You're not going to get that path letting you know what's going to look like. See, when I click, I'm not getting the preview. I got to decide myself. So in this case, I know I need a curve because I'm on a curve. If I need a curve, then I'm going to click and drag. Then I will start to see the path that I'm making. So, and by the way, do I click right on the edge? Like, do I try and line up the tip of the pinpoint right on the edge? Well, you could, but in that case, you're always going to run the risk of not being right on the edge. In other words, you're going to run the risk of leaving some white around the edges. So I would say, come in about a pixel or 2. It's okay. No one will notice that pixel missing from the image, and your edges will be dead on. Your edges will be sharper. All right, and by the way, if you don't get it right, you can always adjust it like we already learned. So I'm going to click and drag, and now that's going to start to show me the curve that I'm making. I'm dragging in the direction that I'm going to continue tracing. So where do you click your next point? That's the next thing about tracing. You click your point usually where there's going to be a direction or a type of path change. In other words, that's a direction change because it's going to go down here and it's going to change directions and go that way. A type of path change is I'm coming off a curve point into a corner. So maybe I don't drag it as far. Maybe I just drag it just a little bit because there's a little bit of curvature there. Then I can skip and go all the way down here because nothing's happening in between here. There's no direction change. There's no path type change. So I come down here and I just click because that was pretty much a straight line. If I come here, well, okay, it's starting to curve again and it kind of dips down ever so slightly there. So maybe I want to put my next point there. And you're never going to guess this right 100% of the time until you get really good at it. Then you will guess most of the time where you should put them. But even if you don't get it right, you can always go back and adjust it. All right, so same thing here. The direction starts to change right about there. Curve, drag it out a little bit, and we just keep going. So it's like literally connect the dots kind of drawing. That's going into a corner. Then we're coming up here to a curve, and you just keep going just like that. And keep dragging in the direction of your next point. Hold down the space bar to move it. That way I don't have to zoom out. That way I don't have to switch tools. Space bar is awesome for that. Now there's a little bit of a dip in here, so maybe I want to, and you'll be anxious, by the way, because you want to get it over with. Nobody likes doing this. This is not fun. So you may want to cheat and try and skip all the way up here. If you cheat, your path's going to look like you cheated. In other words, it's going to look like you skip spots and you're going to be missing spots. So as much as I wanted to cheat and jump ahead, it's just basically easier just to make that little path point right there, make another one right there, and another one here. All right, direction change right about here. Same thing, curve in the direction I'm going in, curve in the direction I'm going in, curve in the direction I'm going in, and you will be mastering the pen tool quicker than I can say mastering the pen tool. All right, so same thing here. This is where the direction changes. Drag out a curve. And once you know that little tip about dragging the curve as much as you need in the direction you're going, this does go pretty quickly. I'm taking my time here explaining it and taking a little extra time just looking at it, but I would probably do this faster and just tweak whatever I missed. All right, so, and you might be saying, well, Terry, I've got select subject, I've got quick select tool, I've got magic wand, I've got all these other selection methods. Why would I ever do it this way? Because if you're being paid for your work and you need that selection to be perfect as possible, this is the most perfect way to make a selection around hard edges. Now again, if I were cutting a person out and they have soft edges all the way around, nope, I wouldn't even bother with this. I would use all those other methods we just talked about, or I just talked about. But for this type of work where I'm trying to cut something out very precisely, this is where the pen tool comes in. Also, if you're still using an application that honors what am I trying to say? Paths for transparency, like back in the Quark Express days. InDesign doesn't need this, but programs like that use these paths to cut out the background because it didn't understand transparency. So and by the way, see that corner? Just dragging out the curve to match that corner, and then I'm going to keep going. Just keep dragging in the direction you want to go in. All right, can you save it as a path before you complete the actual path? Yeah, whenever you stop, it will, the minute you start drawing, in other words, it will be a path on the paths palette. So you don't have to finish it, that path will be there. All right, and again, those direction changes. And again, you'll get better as you practice at predicting what kind of path, like that one I messed up on, what kind of path you want, where you should drag your next point, so forth and so on. And it's okay to mess up. It's okay for it not to be perfect because you're going to always be able to go back and tweak it. So click, come up here and click, and we're done. We're done with the initial path. Now at this point, all the other things I talked about. So, I kind of want that one to be in a little bit more, so I go to my other tools. I go to my direct selection tool, which is right there. Your tools may be in different places because I've customized my toolbar. But anyway, I can go in and I can say, ooh, I want to move that one around. I want to get that one a little bit tighter in there. And I can zoom in and do all kinds of things to make it just right. But you have the ability to do everything I already told you about, including holding down your Option key, tweaking just one side of it, getting that one side just right. Oh yeah, here is really screwed up. Let me see what I want to do to fix that. Can that be fixed? Yep, if I hold down the Option key, I can probably fix that. Yeah, so you just walk your way around visually around your subject and make your adjustments. All right, I can spend probably the next 20 minutes tweaking this. We don't have 20 minutes to tweak it, so just keep in mind you would just keep making it the way you want. And here, like for example, this will be a good example of where, let's see if I can do it this way. Option key, yep, okay, see, I'm just holding down the Option key to kind of bring that in tighter. But anyway, if you can add points, delete points, convert points the same way we showed in Illustrator. Now, how do I save this so I don't ever have to do it again? Paths. There's a work path. I already made one called ARM. So I'm going to call this one ARM Live. Since we started a new one from scratch. And now that I have ARM Live, if I deselect it and I ever want to, here, let me zoom out. If I ever want to select that ARM again, this is saved with the file. So I would always be able to come back in and say, you know, I really love to select that ARM. Hold down my Command key and click, and I've got a selection. If I don't hold down the Command key and click, I've got a path. So Command J, put it on its own layer, go to my Layers panel, and turn off the background, and I've got a perfect cutout, if I spent more time on it, a perfect cutout, meaning perfect just the way I wanted it to be, without having to manipulate or try and figure out edges with pixels and so forth and so on. I've got it cut just the way I wanted it to be, and that's the whole point. So now I'm on a transparent layer. I've got a separate ARM layer all by itself. I can do whatever I want to it because it is now separate. And Tajan is saying it's going to be a game changer. It's been around for decades, but again, people are afraid of it because they clicked it and they start trying to draw with it and they don't understand how it works. Because it doesn't work like any other tool. And that's the whole point of me giving you this tutorial so that you can really know it's not hard. It takes practice, but it's not hard. It's click or click and drag. It's click and drag without worrying. It's clicking without worrying because I'll always be able to go back and fix those points if I messed up. If I click the wrong point, convert it. If I don't like the way the handles go, hold down the Option key or Alt key and adjust them. If I don't need a point, delete it. If I needed a point where I didn't add one, I skipped ahead too far, click the add plus, click the pin with the plus sign and away you go. So don't be afraid of the pen tool. Would have liked to have seen this in 2001. I might have done it in 2001. You never know. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you might see it from 2001. But I think I'd explained it probably better than I ever have today, thanks to you guys. All right, so with that said, I hope that you got something out of this. Don't be afraid of the pen tool. The pen tool is amazing. I don't use it as much as I used to because of the kinds of things I select. But if you're a graphic designer selecting objects to be put in graphic designs, then yeah, this on Tuesday, so we'll be doing one on the InDesign channel for Facebook and of course my usual channels. But don't be afraid of this. This is definitely the one. Yep, there are all kinds of key modifiers. Mark, like I said, hold down the caps lock to make a crosshair instead of an arrow is absolutely one of them. All right, so cheers everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.